Thank you very much. It's indeed a pleasure to be at this forum today. And let me at the outset compliment the Goa Legislative Assembly, the Government of Goa, and the MIT School of Government for conceiving of this initiative at a very important juncture in both Goa's history and the nation's history. I would like to begin by saying it's indeed a great privilege and pleasure for me to be able to share the stage with my distinguished co-panelists. Because according to me, I think they symbolize the best of both worlds. All of them have had certain areas of professional excellence in which they have excelled, and yet they have made an ardent commitment to be part of public life and to make public service their creed. And I think as young Goans and young Indians, these are the kind of role models to emulate who do well in their professional careers, but also have a sense of social consciousness to be able to give back to this nation. Because ultimately, nation building is a collective effort. When we talk about the political leadership of our country and what the nation essentially looks at them and requires from them, I think one of the most important points we have to remember is our nation has passed through various political phases. And at different junctures in our political journey, there has been a sense of cynicism that has developed amongst the youth of this country towards politics. The political trust that needs to be there between the politicians and its citizens had denuded. And often when that happens, you are looking for inspirational leaders to come forth who can once again restore that public trust, that political trust that makes young people believe that yes, politics is indeed the medium through which service can be done. For Goa, we have no better example than what we can see here, late Shri Manohar Parrikarji, who I think in many ways symbolizes almost an kind of a quintessential politician that India should look forward to. And at the national level, for the last 7 years, we've been seeing an inspiring leader who's done yeoman service in winning back the people's trust into politics. So what does young India look for? I would say that the first thing young India looks for is a sense of national purpose in its leadership. Right now, we are in the midst of an unprecedentedly successful vaccination drive in this country, which is being marveled the world over. The world is so appreciative of what India is doing, but are all Indian politicians willing to come together in a national consensus and back the government and say, yes, your success is our success, and our success is your success? I think that is what young India looks for. That in times of national distress, you need national consensus. So you need somebody like Prime Minister Modi, who is a consensus builder. And I think he's challenging every political outfit in this country to back the country when the country is going through one of its glorious moments. The young also look at courageous leadership. And we saw that in August 2019, when the political class of this country, led of course by the government of India, which took the most courageous decision to be able to finish the unfinished business of Indian nationhood. When we were able to abrogate Article 370, and we were also able to mainstream Ladakh into Indian nationhood and bring it into the mainstream of India's development. I think young India endorsed it affirmatively because in that action of the political leadership, they saw a sense of purpose and they saw a sense of courage. You also look at political leaders and you try to see whether they are visionary in terms of what they're doing. And what does vision mean? Vision means not living in the present and thinking of the present and being preoccupied with the present. Vision means living in the present, being aware of your glorious past, because we are a timeless civilization of immense pride, but being able to plan and envision for decades going forward. And I would say here that the remarkable initiative that was recently launched, which is called Gati Shakti, the two words Gati and Shakti. Gati is speed, Shakti is power. When you bring speed and power together, then nation building gets a gusto of its own. It gets a momentum of its own. And I think what young India looks to its political class and tells them that we need Gati from you, we also need the Shakti from you, because you need to be able to unite in speed and in power. You also look at the leadership of the country and you try and see whether this leadership really is able to provide you with a sense of value-based leadership. Politics is about service, but politics is also about symbolizing the values that society has and to be able to encourage society to develop stronger values. And I see this all the time. In the privilege that I have in addressing campuses both within India and worldwide, I often keep hearing this from global audiences, that while we are much more confident of India, India somewhere lacks the confidence in its own self, or has lacked that confidence in the past. And that is why the political leadership of this country has to bet on the youth of this country. Because as has often been said, we keep talking about 65% of our population being below the age of 35. But India's median age is 27. And if you look globally, there's only Africa as a continent, which is a young continent that can be put alongside a continental-sized country like India, which is a young demography. But the question is, young by itself means nothing. What can you do with that young population, and what that young population can do from itself? And that means we need to be able to leverage the strength of our young population. And the political leadership needs to be sagacious and enlightened enough to be able to leverage the strengths of India's population. And that means doing what has now been done in the last few years, which is to unleash the animal spirits of the Indian economy, which is to unleash the creative energies of young Indians so that young Indians can be empowered themselves. For far too long, we've looked at politics and said, politics will deliver for me. But I have to deliver for myself. Because when politics gets into your living room, we say there's too much politics. There's too much government. Which means government has to do its job, but the young people need to do their job. And that's why when the political leadership of a country can come up with schemes like Startup India, Stand Up India, and of course, skilling of India, then you are actually converting India's young population into an optimized dividend of population. And that optimized dividend can then not only leverage India's strengths domestically, but also help India rise as the rising power that it needs to be. The young leaders, or the young of this country, also want to see a sense of pride that we take in our own civilization. We must look at ourselves very differently from any country going around. Because while we are a young country in political terms, and a young nation in political terms, we are a timeless ancient civilization that can draw on many of our strengths. And it is these strengths that we can draw from our civilization, the lessons, the instructive lessons we can draw from our civilization, which holds us in good stead to be able to build the India of the future. Because we don't just want to build a material society. We want to truly be an economy and a society that exudes Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And you see that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in political leadership. Because when the world is in distress, we help the world. And when we are in distress, we are open to welcoming help from the world. And that is what symbolizes what India stands for. And the young of this country, many of whom are kind of 21st century millennials, also need to be able to do the right job of being able to understand India's civilizational trajectory. So I'll end by saying that ideal leadership, political leadership, is one that is courageous, one that is creative, one that is visionary, one that is constructive, but also one that can blend civilizational tapestry with the vistas of the future, and can do it by unleashing the creative strengths of young India. Thank you very much.